There's a moment in every life when silence becomes unbearable, not because of external noise, but because of the internal storm, the voices whispering all the things we should be doing, the dreams deferred, the goals untouched. And in that stillness, procrastination thrives like a parasite in the shadows. We don't avoid work because we're lazy. No, we procrastinate because deep down, we fear. We fear failure. We fear success. We fear the unknown path between our current reality and the version of ourselves we long to become. That fear wears many masks: distraction, indecision, fatigue. But it all leads to the same grave: a life. UNLIVED. Napoleon Hill understood this all too well. In his timeless work, Think and Grow Rich, he said, "Procrastination is the bad habit of putting off until the day after tomorrow what should have been done the day before yesterday." He didn't just write that for businessmen and tycoons. He wrote it for you and me, ordinary souls with extraordinary potential, too often paralyzed by the weight of tomorrow. But here's the secret. Procrastination is not an enemy to be feared. It is a weak opponent, one that crumbles when faced with clarity, purpose, and decisive action. And it doesn't take a lifetime to defeat it. It takes 30 minutes. Yes, just 30. That's all. But these aren't ordinary minutes. They are sacred, focused, intentional, and when used correctly, they can flip the trajectory of your entire existence. Not next year, not next month, today. First weapon against procrastination is awareness. You cannot conquer what you refuse to face. Sit down, turn off the noise, grab a sheet of paper. Write the truth. What are you avoiding right now? Be raw. Be specific. There is no victory without honesty. Next, identify the cost. What does procrastination steal from you daily? Dreams? Opportunities? Peace of mind? Write it all down. Because what the mind sees clearly, it cannot ignore. Now, think of the opposite. What could you gain if you took action today? Confidence, growth, freedom, purpose. Let that vision light a fire under your excuses. Then, in that same moment, right now, choose one task, not 10, not everything, just one. One thing you've been avoiding, one thing that matters. And commit to working on it for the next 30 minutes. Set a timer. No distractions, no checking your phone, no jumping between tabs. Just you and the task. Give it all you have, like your future depends on it, because it does. You'll notice something strange happens around minute 7. The fog lifts. Resistance weakens. Momentum builds. And suddenly, you're not just doing the thing, you're becoming the kind of person who does the thing. That shift is everything. Napoleon Hill taught that action is the real measure of intelligence. It's not enough to plan, to dream, to think. The only thing that transforms potential into power is movement. You don't need more intention. And intention doesn't wait for motivation. It creates it. Procrastination dies when action begins. It cannot coexist with movement. Every step you take, no matter how small, chips away at the mental chains that have held you back. The 30-minute rule is not just a tactic, it's a mindset. It says, I may not be perfect, but I am powerful. I may not finish everything today, but I will start today. It teaches you to honor your time like treasure, not waste it like it's infinite. Because it's not. Time is the only currency you can't earn back. Within those 30 minutes, you're not just working. You're proving to yourself that you can be trusted, that your word matters. That when you say you'll show up, you do. And that self-trust, that internal integrity, becomes the cornerstone of self-discipline. It's not willpower that gets you to the finish line. It's habit born from belief. When procrastination knocks again, and it will, you now have a weapon, the memory of your own power. You've seen what you can do in 30 focused minutes. You've tasted that victory. Use it. Return to it. Again and again. Make those 30-minute sessions sacred. Protect them like prayer. Schedule them into your day like appointments with destiny, because that's what they are. And don't wait for the perfect day to begin. Start now. Start messy. Start afraid. Start unsure. But start, because the truth is, motion breeds clarity. Each time you act, the path ahead becomes a little less foggy, and your confidence grows a little more solid. Eventually, the person who once delayed everything becomes the person who attacks life with purpose. One who builds, who finishes, who leads. That is the transformation. That is how procrastination dies, not with a dramatic gesture, but with a decision. A small, brave choice made over and over again. You don't need 10 hours. You don't need another course, or podcast, or pep talk. You need 30 minutes. And a decision. And what begins with 30 minutes today might evolve into a new standard for your life tomorrow. Because once you've discovered your own power to act. Well, that's where the real story begins. Because once you've discovered your own power to act. You begin to see procrastination for what it really is. A mirage. It looked large only when you stood still. But when you moved just a little, it crumbled. And now, you're standing in front of the one thing procrastination always feared. Progress. But here's the twist. The battle doesn't end with one victory. Procrastination doesn't vanish forever. It comes back, sometimes subtly, sometimes dressed as research or rest or waiting for the right moment. Its disguises evolve with you. That's why you need more than discipline. You need a system, a personal ritual, a daily rhythm that doesn't leave room for hesitation to take root again. The 30-minute strategy isn't a one-time burst. It's your new baseline. Start each morning by reviewing your mission. Remind yourself why this matters. What are you building? Who are you becoming? Anchor your actions to your purpose. Because a distracted mind drifts, but a clear purpose directs. Then, list your one thing, that one needle-moving task, that single brick in the wall of your vision. Too many goals lead to no action. One clear intention leads to completion. When resistance whispers, as it always does, respond with motion. Open the document. Make the call. Write the first line. Don't wait to feel like it. Take the first step, and the energy will follow. And once you begin, don't break the flow. Those 30 minutes are your sacred container. If your mind wanders, gently return. If doubt creeps in, remind yourself, I do hard things. I move forward even when I don't feel ready. With each session, you train your brain to associate focus with fulfillment. Discomfort turns into growth. Boredom becomes creative space. You'll stop seeing effort as punishment and start seeing it as empowerment. Napoleon Hill said, "Do not wait. The time will never be just right." And he was right. The most dangerous lie procrastination tells is, later will be better. But later is built on the foundation of now. There is no perfect season to begin. The conditions you're waiting for might never come. You have to plant seeds today, even if the soil feels dry, even if the skies look gray. Because effort today becomes harvest tomorrow. Consistency, not intensity, wins this war. You don't need to conquer mountains in one leap. You need to return to the trail every single day, no matter how steep it feels. And if you fall, because you will fall forward, review what interrupted your flow. Was it distraction? Fear? Perfectionism? Learn the pattern. And next time, prepare for it. Track your wins. Celebrate completion, not perfection. Every 30-minute victory is a deposit in the bank of your confidence. Over time, that compound interest turns into mastery, and soon something incredible happens. People begin to notice. They ask what changed. You start to lead by example. Your courage gives them permission to start. Your discipline becomes contagious. You become the proof that change is possible, that the dreamer can become the doer. That clarity and consistency can rebuild a life once frozen by fear. And it's not just about productivity. It's deeper. It's about becoming whole. Showing up for yourself daily reawakens self-respect, self-trust, and self-love. You stop abandoning your own potential. You stop negotiating with mediocrity. You begin treating your time as sacred because you finally understand. You are sacred. The energy you used to spend avoiding now fuels creating. The guilt that used to linger now transforms into gratitude. The fog lifts and purpose returns. This is how momentum begins, quietly, in stolen minutes. In small acts of defiance against the lie that you're not ready. In choosing progress over perfection. And every time you complete your 30-minute mission, you build proof that you can be counted on. You silence the inner critic and strengthen the inner champion. Then the habits deepen. You stack 30 minutes on top of 30 more. And without realizing it, you've built a new identity, a finisher, a builder, a leader of your own life. But this is just the beginning. Because once you've taken control of procrastination, the door to a greater challenge opens. How to sustain long-term purpose, scale your impact, and build systems that serve others as well as yourself. And that's where we go next. Because it's not enough to defeat procrastination once. The goal now is to build a life system where progress becomes natural, automatic, even inevitable. A life where action isn't a struggle, but a rhythm. This is where intentional living begins. No more reacting to life. Now you design it. You wake up with direction. You approach your day with strategy. You protect your time as if it were gold, because it is. You begin each week with a mission. What must be done to move your vision forward? Not to look busy, not to check boxes, but to create real results. Napoleon Hill called this definiteness of purpose. Without it, we drift. With it, we dominate. He wrote, "There is one quality which one must possess to win, and that is definiteness of purpose, the knowledge of what one wants, and a burning desire to possess it." That's not poetry. That's a formula. It starts with clarity. What do you truly want? What life are you building? What contribution are you here to make? The clearer the target, the sharper the aim. Then comes the plan. Your 30-minute victories. Evolve into systems, a daily structure that aligns your actions with your purpose. This is how the extraordinary become consistent. They don't depend on mood. They depend on structure. But structure alone isn't enough. You need energy. And that's why high performers protect their bodies, their minds, and their spirits. Because a tired soul can't lead. A scattered mind can't create. A stressed body can't sustain greatness. So now you build habits that fuel you. Mornings with movement. Afternoons with focus. Evenings with reflection. Sleep becomes sacred. Food becomes fuel. And your digital world becomes filtered. No more constant noise and meaningless input. You choose to surround yourself with truth and fire. Books that build. Voices that challenge. People who push. Because mediocrity is contagious, but so is excellence. Napoleon Hill called it the mastermind principle. The idea that aligned minds create explosive growth. So, you form your inner circle with care. You spend time with those who remind you who you can be. And soon, your days begin to compound. Your life becomes layered with clarity, momentum, and mission. Distractions no longer dominate you. They are disarmed before they take root. You become fiercely selective with where your time goes. You say no, often not out of arrogance, but out of purpose. Because every yes to the wrong thing is a no to your calling. And here's the spiritual truth. God did not create you to live in delay. Procrastination is the slow suffocation of purpose. But action? Action is worship. Action is obedience to the gifts you've been given. When you act, you honor the divine spark in you. You partner with heaven. You say, I will not bury my talents. I will multiply them. That's why this journey matters so deeply. And as you keep showing up, something beautiful happens. Your work begins to serve others. Your transformation becomes someone else's permission. Your courage becomes a light in someone else's tunnel. What once was a battle just to get started becomes a mission to leave impact behind. You no longer work just to survive. You work to build a life, a legacy, a message. A movement. Napoleon Hill taught that riches are not just money. They are peace, freedom, growth, influence. And the richest people are those who live aligned with their God-given design. So now, you start asking deeper questions. How can my actions today echo into eternity? Who will be changed by what I'm creating? What story am I writing with my life? And you realize that the same 30 minutes you once wasted scrolling, avoiding, hesitating, are now planting seeds that will bless people you've never even met. Because when you defeat procrastination, you do more than increase productivity. You break a generational pattern. You shift an atmosphere. You prove that change is possible. That's the real prize. That's what's at stake. Not just finishing a task, but fulfilling a calling. And now, you've stepped into something deeper than time management. You've stepped into purpose alignment. But this journey isn't over. There's still more to unlock. Because once you've mastered personal momentum, what happens when you scale that discipline into every area of your life? Because once you've mastered personal momentum, you begin to realize that discipline in one area naturally flows into the rest. You can't be focused in your work and chaotic in your finances. You can't build consistency in your schedule and allow disorder in your relationships. Excellence spills over. Let's begin with your finances. Procrastination here is one of the most dangerous forms. It robs silently. Delaying that budget, avoiding those debts, ignoring investments. It's not just costing you money, it's costing you freedom. But when you take the same 30-minute principle and apply it to money, everything changes. You sit down. You review. You plan. You begin to command your money instead of wondering where it went. You set goals, not vague dreams, but concrete milestones. Emergency fund, debt-free, investments, giving. Each step becomes an act of self-respect. Each financial choice becomes a vote for the future version of you. Napoleon Hill said, riches begin in the form of thought. You must first see yourself as someone worthy of financial mastery, then build the systems to match that identity. And then there are your relationships. Procrastination poisons connection. The text you never send. The apology you delay. The vulnerability you keep putting off. But growth in relationships begins with courage and consistency, just like everything else. What if you dedicated just 30 minutes today to restoring a connection? What if you use that time to write a message of gratitude, ask deeper questions, or finally speak the truth? Healing often waits on action. That you start learning that showing up for others, really showing up, requires the same focus you've been cultivating in your personal disciplines. You become more present, more intentional, more real. And as your relationships deepen, your sense of purpose expands. We weren't designed to grow in isolation. We sharpen each other. We challenge each other. We love each other into becoming. This brings us to the spiritual layer. Procrastination in the spiritual life is one of the enemy's quietest strategies. Pray later. Read tomorrow. Serve when you're ready. But connection with God can't be delayed without consequence. The soul dries up in silence. What if you gave your Creator 30 minutes at the start of your day, before the noise, before the battles, before the demands. Just 30 minutes of communion, listening, praising, seeking wisdom. You'd find that he doesn't procrastinate on you. His presence is immediate. His love is constant. And when you align your steps with his will, the confusion that once fed your hesitation begins to fade. Napoleon Hill, though not a theologian, spoke often about infinite intelligence, a higher power guiding those who seek purpose with faith and action. That wasn't just philosophy. That was a reflection of spiritual reality. So now your day isn't just a grind, it's a calling. Your work becomes worship. Your goals become offerings. Your effort becomes gratitude. And then comes leadership. People will begin to notice your pace, your clarity, your energy. They'll ask how you do it. And you'll realize something. Leaders aren't born. They are revealed by consistent action over time. Your 30-minute victories become your testimony. Not because you're perfect, but because you're faithful. You've chosen to act when others hesitate, to finish when others talk, to show up even when you didn't feel like it. This kind of leadership isn't loud. It's not controlling. It's not about titles. It's about integrity. People trust those who walk in what they speak. Eventually, your life starts writing a story that others want to read. And from that story comes legacy. Legacy isn't built at the end of your life. It's built every day by the choices you make when no one is watching. The habits, the words, the way you respond to resistance. And as you keep moving forward, you realize this was never about killing procrastination. It was about awakening the person you were always meant to be. Every minute mattered. Every small act of obedience added up. And now, the life you once only dreamed of, you're living it. But even still, there's more. Because once your life is aligned, your mission is clear, and your impact begins to multiply. You must ask the final question. How do I multiply this in others? Because once your hands are no longer tied by procrastination, once your life is flowing with direction, peace, and impact, you realize something profound. This freedom isn't just for you. It was never meant to end with you. The purpose of personal victory is to become a guide, a light, a blueprint for someone else's breakthrough. You are now the living example of what's possible. And you don't need to be a coach, a speaker, or a CEO to lead others. Influence begins in silence, in presence, in modeling. The way you live now teaches more than anything you say. So you start small. You share your process. You tell your story honestly. You talk about your struggle with procrastination and the day everything began to change with 30 minutes of obedience. People don't connect with perfection. They connect with transparency. They need to know you didn't have it all together, but you started anyway. That's where the power is. Then you begin inviting others in. You help a friend set their own 30-minute session. You challenge your team to build one meaningful habit. You walk with your family through their own resistance. You become a multiplier, not because you know everything, but because you've practiced something real and it works. And when you give it away, it grows. Your story becomes a system. Your system becomes a method. Your method becomes a movement. This is how legacies are built, through repeated truth, applied and shared. Napoleon Hill called this organized knowledge. It's not just what you know. It's how you apply it and how you teach others to do the same. Without structure, ideas fade. But with structure, they scale. So you begin to document. You write the principles. You record the shifts. You build the steps so others don't have to start from zero. You become a mentor to people you may never meet. And this work matters more than ever, because we are living in a distracted generation, a time of constant noise, short attention, and mental fatigue. People are drowning in delay, not because they're weak, but because no one showed them a way out. You show them, with love, with patience, with boldness. You hold up the mirror and say, "You're capable, but you have to move, and I'll walk with you." And the more you lead, the more you grow. Because multiplication forces you to refine. You must live what you teach. You must master the basics again and again. And that makes you stronger. Eventually, this pours into content, into writing, into videos, into teachings, into books, courses, conversations. You no longer create for applause. You create to awaken. You use your gifts to point people back to discipline, purpose, and truth. You become a bridge, not to perfection, but to progress. And as the fruit begins to grow, your role shifts. You're not just a student anymore. You're not even just a leader. You're a steward of legacy. Legacy isn't about building empires. It's about transferring principles. It's not about your name being remembered. It's about people remembering what's possible because you lived with bold consistency. You look at your children differently. Your team, your students. You ask, what habits am I passing on? What mindsets am I modeling? What future am I shaping through my example? And then you remember how it all began with a decision, one honest moment, one simple action, one sacred 30-minute window, from hesitation to influence, from fear to leadership, from delay to destiny. And now, the work is no longer optional. It's a sacred responsibility. You carry the fire, and it must not go out. But as you look around, as your life begins to bloom, you sense that the work still isn't done, because there are still parts of you that haven't been fully unlocked. Still, dreams God placed in your heart that haven't yet been touched by your new discipline. So now, a deeper invitation appears. So now, a deeper invitation appears. Not louder, not more urgent, but quieter, deeper, more sacred. It's not about doing more, it's about becoming whole. About aligning the last pieces of your identity with the truth of your calling. You begin to feel a stirring. There are dreams that never died, only slept. Visions that once burned brightly, but were buried under the weight of fear and the dust of delay. Now, with your new discipline, they begin to rise. You start to realize that you weren't just called to get things done. You were called to create beauty, to build things that matter, to carry light into dark places. And for that, you need more than structure. You need surrender. This is the season where discipline meets destiny, where productivity bows to purpose, where your daily grind transforms into sacred ground. The ordinary becomes holy. You pause more often now, not because you're tired, but because you're listening to God, to your soul, to the quiet whispers that used to be drowned out by hurry and hesitation. You begin to ask questions you once avoided. Am I becoming the person I was created to be? Do my actions reflect what I truly value? Have I made room for the presence of God in the details of my life? And slowly, your calendar starts to reflect those answers. You make space, not just for goals, but for grace. You stop worshiping the hustle. You start honoring the stillness, because clarity is born in silence. This shift isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You're not stepping away from excellence. You're stepping into alignment. You're trading striving for strategy, burnout for balance, control for trust. And then something miraculous happens. You start dreaming again. But this time, not from a place of desperation, but of wholeness. You're not chasing success to prove your worth. You're building from overflow. The dream expands. It's not just about your productivity, your wealth, your name. It's about impact that outlives you, about healing that reaches beyond your family, about light that travels generations. You think about the children who will grow up in homes shaped by your obedience, about communities transformed by your courage, about lives lifted because you refuse to delay. This is legacy in its highest Form, not just systems and success, but eternal significance. You stop asking, what can I get? And begin asking, what can I leave behind? You plant trees under whose shade you may never sit. You build with the long view. You serve with quiet strength. You give without needing credit. You trust the God who sees in secret. And the peace that follows, it's not shallow. It's still. It's fierce. You're no longer battling procrastination. You're walking in purpose. You're not chasing meaning. You've become meaningful. You've learned to command time instead of being ruled by it. To harness focus without being consumed by pressure. To work from a place of identity, not insecurity. This is what happens when the 30-minute habit becomes a way of life. It opens the door to inner mastery, and from that mastery flows a river of influence the world cannot ignore. And the journey still continues. Because now you begin to sense there are others watching your life who haven't yet begun their own journey. They're waiting for a guide, a voice, a sign that it's not too late. And the question becomes, how will you now? Call them forward? Because you were never meant to walk this road alone. Every breakthrough you experienced, every fear you overcame, every 30-minute victory. Tutto isso agora se transforma en chave para libertar outros. And they're closer than you think. Some are in your family. Others are among your friends. Some are strangers watching your life silently, wondering if they também podem mudar. They don't need a perfect leader. They need an honest one. They don't need someone who knows all the answers. They need someone who moves even with doubts. Someone who shows that real transformation is possible. So you begin by sharing. Not your highlight reel, but your truth. Your before and after. You wrestle with procrastination. Your first step, your resistance, your wins, your slips, your return. This vulnerability becomes your greatest strength. It breaks shame, it invites trust, and it models what freedom actually looks like. Not flawless, but faithful. And now you begin to teach. Start simple. Share the 30-minute principle. Teach them how to sit in silence and name the one task they're avoiding. Guide them to start, not next week, not tomorrow. Today. Help them choose purpose over comfort, direction over distraction, progress over perfection. Show them how to honor their time, not fear it. You don't lecture, you walk with them. You sit next to them in the tension. You celebrate small wins. You call out the gold inside them before they see it themselves. This is true discipleship. Not just information transfer, but identity transformation. You help them shift from people who wait to people who act, from passive consumers to intentional creators. And as they grow, you teach them to lead others too. You're not building followers, you're building multipliers. People who will carry the flame long after you're gone. You create spaces for accountability, encouragement, and growth. Maybe it's a group. Maybe it's a course. Maybe it's daily voice notes. Maybe it's just you and one other person meeting faithfully, moving forward. But soon, it grows. Your obedience becomes a culture. Your consistency becomes a movement. And the world begins to change, not through noise or hype, but through discipline, love, and legacy. And this generation needs it more than ever. They're being seduced by endless scrolling, paralyzed by comparison, drowning in options but starved of direction. You have what they need, not more information, but anchored truth. You are called to carry this truth, to embody it, to teach it, to multiply it. Not someday, now, because when you lead with integrity and consistency, your life becomes a mirror, a challenge, a blueprint. People stop asking if it's possible. They see that it is. This is how we raise a generation that lives with urgency and peace. Not rushed, but ready. Not overwhelmed, but awake. A people who redeem time and reject delay. And one by one, as others rise with you, you'll witness the impossible. A culture of excellence rooted in grace. A movement of finishers, builders, disciples of purpose. And it all began with a simple question. What can I do in 30 minutes? But now, standing here changed, stretched, renewed, the question has grown into something far more powerful. What can God do through a life that refuses to wait? The answer echoes across time. He can build nations, restore generations, and awaken movements. And it always begins the same way, through one surrendered, disciplined, intentional life. Now that your personal victory has become shared transformation, the stage begins a nova expansao. You no longer ask, what can I build? You ask, what can I leave behind? You understand now that legacy isn't just about remembrance. Legacy is about continuity. It's about others carrying forward what you've begun, adding to it, expanding it, and going further than you ever imagined. You begin to see your story as a seed, not a statue. Not something to be preserved and admired, but something to be planted and multiplied. And for that, you must create more than moments. You must create structures, platforms, systems, books, movements, frameworks que vivem além de sua presença física. Maybe you start writing a book that shares your method, your pain, your awakening. Not polished for prestige, but built for clarity. So that long after you're gone, someone stumbling in darkness will find your words and begin again. Maybe you launch a platform, a course, a mentorship, a training program. Something that captures the fire of your journey and transfers it, step by step, into lives ready to rise. Maybe you gather others like you, leaders, visionarios, criadores. And gentos, vocus constrom algo maior que qualquer ego. Espaço sagrado, en consistência, e mais valiosa que charisma. And as your vision grows, so does your responsibility. Now you're not just stewarding your time, you're stewarding the time of others. You're no longer building only for impact. You're building for permanence. So you surround yourself with wisdom, counsel, intercessors, mentors experientes. Porque si nivel exige mais que talento, exige profundidade, humildade, vigilancia espiritual. You invest in the next generation, intentionalment. You teach your children not just to avoid distraction, but to pursue purpose. You teach them how to honor their time, their gifts, their relationships. You raise a family that leads not through dominance, but through service, not through performance, but through presence. A family where delay doesn't rule and fear doesn't define. And you protect your house from the same forces you once battled within. You teach them the same truths that once set you free. You don't need to feel ready. You need to begin. You don't need to do it all. You need to do one thing, well, every day. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be present. This is how you build generational fire. And when doubt returns, as it will, you return to the altar. You remember that this was never about fame or control. It was always about obedience, about being faithful with the little. So, he can entrust you with the greater. And what you once feared stage, influence, responsibility, you now carry with sacred reverence. Because you've died to performance and come alive to purpose. You begin to see the global picture. Not just your city or your nation, but the world. Places where discipline and faith are rare. Lugares onde procrastinação sufoca vozes inteiras. Cultures marcadas por paralysia. And you pray, send me. Not to impress, not to dominate, but to liberate. To teach what you've learned. To awaken, to activate. To restore. Because if God could use 30 minutes to change your life, what might He do with 30 years of your faithfulness? This is the birth of global legacy. When your life becomes a bridge between what was delayed and what is now possible, and though your name may fade, your impact will not. You have built something powerful, yet you know the deepest work remains unseen. The battle for procrastination was only the threshold to a greater war, a war for the soul's peace and purpose. Now, maturity calls. It calls for patience, for silence, for a deep knowing that your worth isn't measured by your achievements, but by your faithfulness. You discover a peace that is unshakable, a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances or results, but on the unwavering trust that your labor is not in vain. This peace guards your heart and mind, keeping you steady amid storms, distractions, and the ever-present temptation to drift back into delay. Your influence grows, but it no longer shouts. It whispers. It is felt in quiet corners, in lives changed without fanfare, in seeds planted that blossom years later. You become a gardener of souls and systems, tending to what will outlast you: principles, habits, and hearts. You embrace the reality that true leadership is not control, but stewardship. Not power, but service. Not recognition, but legacy. And as you prepare for the next seasons of life, you realize the most profound legacy isn't what you build with your hands, but what you cultivate in the hearts of others. You witness others rise because you chose to rise first. You see dreams awaken because you dared to dream boldly. You understand that your story is woven into the tapestry of a much larger narrative, one that spans generations and realms unseen. And this humbles you. It grounds you. It inspires you to live not for applause, but for eternity. You cherish moments of reflection and gratitude, knowing each day is a gift, a chance to act, to love, to build. You surrender your plans to a higher purpose, trusting that even when the way is unclear, the path is sure. In your quiet moments, you pray not for more time, but for more wisdom, more love, more courage. You rest in the assurance that the small, faithful acts you have sown will grow beyond your sight, beyond your reach. You find joy in the progress of others, celebrating their breakthroughs as your own. You release the need to control outcomes, embracing instead the call to be faithful with the process. You live with intentionality, knowing that every breath is an opportunity to move from delay into divine destiny. And when you look back, you see a life transformed, one that began with 30 minutes of courage and grew into a lifetime of impact. You smile, knowing that the journey is never truly over. There will always be new dreams to chase, new souls to inspire, new battles to face. But now you face them not with hesitation, but with confidence. You have become a beacon, a steady light guiding those still trapped in delay toward freedom. And when your time comes to step into the eternal, you do so with peace, knowing you have fought well, run your race, and kept the faith. Your story becomes a testimony whispered through the ages, inspiring countless others to rise, act, and live fully. Because you learned the greatest secret. The power to destroy procrastination is the power to reclaim your life. And with that power, you changed everything. Throughout this journey, we have uncovered a profound truth. Procrastination is not an undefeatable monster, but a shadow that fades in the presence of intentional action. We have seen that in just 30 focused minutes, you can take the very first step that turns fear into courage, doubt into determination, and inertia into unstoppable momentum. We learned that awareness of what you are avoiding is the key that unlocks the door to transformation. That clarity of purpose is the fuel that keeps your inner fire burning. And that consistency, even in the smallest moments, is the foundation upon which extraordinary lives are built. We understood that this personal transformation ripples through every area of your life: your finances, your relationships, your spiritual walk, and that true victory is not just individual, but communal. It's a victory that inspires and empowers others to overcome their own battles. We realize that authentic leadership arises from faithfulness to your calling and the courage to be vulnerable. That multiplying your impact happens when you teach and walk alongside those who are ready to grow. And that a lasting legacy is forged daily in integrity, humility, and loving service. More than just productivity. This is a life aligned with divine purpose, where every action becomes an act of worship and every challenge a chance to grow stronger. Let the deep peace and trust in a greater plan sustain you along the way. Now, you stand at a crossroads. Will you continue to delay your dreams and your destiny? Or will you commit the next 30 minutes to take a decisive step toward the life God has designed for you? Remember, the power to transform your reality lies in your hands in this present moment, in your choice to act, in the courage to begin. Let yourself become a beacon of light, an undeniable example that procrastination can be conquered, that potential can be awakened, and that a future rich with meaning can be built one deliberate minute at a time. The invitation has been extended. Transformation is within reach, and your legacy begins right now.